9-year-old daughter's death was ruled a suicide in Nashville. Her mom knew something wasn't right. So our Marissa Sulik explains what she did.
April Holt, a life of triumph, tragedy involving a mother's fight for justice. By the summer of 2023, April Holt was more than just a name on social media. She was a beloved creator with over 200,000 followers on TikTok.
With her 200,000 TikTok followers.
A mother of two and self-described positivity coach.
I watch them all the time, almost daily actually, because I feel like I feel like I can actually feel her.
April captivated audiences with her relatable charm, unyielding optimism, and an inspiring message of perseverance. Her platform showcased snippets of her life, cheerful dance routines, motivational advice, and tender moments with her children, Serenity, 11, and Denzel, 7. These posts painted the picture of a life filled with joy, growth, and triumph over adversity. To her followers, April seemed to have it all. But as with many online personas, the reality was far more complex. Beneath the surface of her radiant presence lay struggles that she rarely let the world see. By late July 2023, tragedy struck, and the vibrant woman who had inspired thousands was suddenly gone, leaving her family, friends, and followers grappling with a devastating loss. A shocking tragedy, a life cut short. On July 28, 2023, April was found unresponsive in the bathroom of her Nashville home. Emergency responders rushed her to the hospital, but despite days of medical intervention, she passed away on July 31st. Her death left a wave of shock and disbelief among those who knew her and those who had followed her journey online. For law enforcement, the initial inclination was to label April's death as a tragedy of her own making, suggesting it was deliberate. However, her mother, Jemia Dickerson, refused to accept this narrative. The pieces just didn't add up. Jemia said in one of her many public statements, this wasn't who April was. She wouldn't leave her children. Someone did this to her, and I will uncover the truth. Fueled by an unshakable conviction and profound grief, Jemia began a relentless fight to uncover what truly happened. As official investigations stalled, Jemia took matters into her own hands, driven by love and an unyielding sense of justice. Just weeks before her death, April had celebrated her 29th birthday, a milestone she marked with gratitude and reflection. Her life, though filled with challenges, was also marked by significant accomplishments. April had built a successful career as a lash technician, running her own business. Her entrepreneurial spirit and commitment to excellence earned her a loyal clientele and the financial independence she had long strived for. But beyond her professional achievements, April's greatest pride lay in her role as a mother. She often spoke about Serenity and Denzel as her primary motivation, the reason she continued to push forward through life's struggles. The face behind the screen, a digital beacon of resilience. To her followers, April Holt was the embodiment of resilience. Her TikTok videos offered glimpses of a woman determined to rise above her challenges and inspire others to do the same. Some of her most popular content centered on personal growth and self-improvement. In one video, April shared, "Life isn't about getting it all right the first time. It's about showing up, even when it's hard. It's about trying again and again." Her candor was equally evident in the way she addressed her vulnerabilities. April openly discussed her struggles with loneliness and depression, particularly the impact of her isolated homeschooling upbringing. She described how the lack of connections in her formative years had shaped her, but also how it fueled her determination to forge meaningful relationships and build a better future. Her authenticity resonated deeply with her audience, who admired her willingness to share not just her triumphs, but also her hardships. For many, April was a reminder that even in our darkest moments, there is strength to be found. A hidden struggle, the weight she carried. Despite the positivity she radiated online, April wasn't immune to life's challenges. In her quieter moments, she allowed her followers a glimpse into the burdens she carried. "Lately, I've been going through a lot," April admitted in one video. "I can definitely say that I'm in a depressed state, just overwhelmed. I know I'm manifesting more negative experiences on myself with how I've been. I have to get out of this funk." Her openness about her struggles made her relatable and inspiring, as she framed her difficulties as temporary obstacles rather than permanent roadblocks. Even as she faced adversity, April remained committed to spreading hope. She believed in the power of resilience and often encouraged her followers to embrace progress over perfection. Her vulnerability became a source of strength, both for herself and for the thousands who looked up to her. Make sure you subscribe to our channel CodeOneEightySeven. You don't want to miss the next one. A life cut short, a family's devastating loss. April's death left an indelible void in the lives of those who loved her. Her family described her as loving, determined, and full of life, a woman who always put her children first and approached every challenge with grace. Her children, Serenity and Denzel, were deeply affected by the loss. Serenity, at just 11 years old, was forced to grapple with the sudden absence of her mother, while Denzel, only 7, struggled to understand the enormity of what had happened. For her followers, the news was incomprehensible. How could someone who had brought so much light into the world be gone so suddenly? A mother's relentless fight for justice. Jamia Dickerson refused to let her daughter's story end with unanswered questions. To her, the official explanation of April's death didn't align with the woman she knew, a devoted mother and fighter who would never choose to leave her children. Jamia launched her own investigation, combing through every piece of evidence and pushing authorities to reopen the case. She reached out to local news stations, advocacy groups, and even celebrities, determined to keep April's story alive. "This isn't just about April," Jamia said. "It's about justice. It's about ensuring that no one else has to fight this hard to uncover the truth. A legacy of love and justice." April Holt's story is one of triumph, tragedy, and the unyielding power of a mother's love. While her life was cut short, her legacy endures through her family's fight for justice and the inspiration she continues to provide to her followers. Jamia's determination has transformed April's story into a rallying cry for accountability and change, ensuring that her daughter's light continues to shine even in the face of darkness. April Holt's online persona and family life, a story of resilience and triumph. April Holt was the picture of modern-day success and positivity, a loving mother, a successful entrepreneur, and a social media influencer with a growing platform. Alongside her husband, Donovan Holt, she shared glimpses of her life on TikTok, building a brand that showcased love, resilience, and triumph over adversity. To their followers, April and Donovan seemed like the ideal couple. They framed their relationship as a partnership rooted in friendship and mutual respect. Their TikTok videos often highlighted their journey through life together, emphasizing the strength of their bond and their ability to navigate life storms as a team. A love story built on friendship. April and Donovan's love story was the foundation of their online presence. In videos and posts, they described a relationship that had evolved from a deep friendship into a lasting partnership. Being best friends, that came first, Donovan explained in one of their videos. "If we weren't friends first, it wouldn't have lasted. That's been the base of the whole relationship. Through everything, we can joke around and maintain that friendship, and it's what kept us through our separation." For April, Donovan was more than a husband. He was her confidant and her rock. In a TikTok post that resonated deeply with their audience, she beamed into the camera and said, "He really is my bestest friend ever. The best friend I could ever ask for. And I married him." Their online narrative celebrated the milestones of their relationship, their courtship, marriage, and the joy of raising 2 children. Serenity, April's daughter from a previous relationship, and Denzel, their son together, were frequent stars in their videos, portraying a family dynamic filled with love and laughter. Despite the love they displayed online, April and Donovan's journey wasn't without challenges. They didn't shy away from discussing the difficulties they had faced, including financial struggles, Donovan's significant health issues, and periods of depression. These hardships tested their relationship and led to a prolonged separation at one point. During this time, April and Donovan continued to share content with their followers, framing their split as a mutual decision aimed at fostering personal growth. "We've decided that being apart is what's best for both of us," Donovan explained in a candid video during their separation. "But no matter what, she's still my best friend. We're always going to have love for each other."
It was our decision. It's my best friend. I still love her to death. Like, we still got a child together. We still gonna be hanging out. I'm probably
All
gonna
the time.
see her.
The couple spent 3 years apart before reuniting, a decision they framed as a testament to the strength of their love. Their reconciliation became a key part of their online narrative, offering their followers a message of hope and perseverance. April often framed her life as an ongoing story of triumph, one where love, communication, and faith always found a way to win in the end. The morning of July 28, 2023, a sudden shift. July 28, 2023, began like any other day for April. Her morning routine was calm and reflective: coffee, journaling, and moments of mindfulness. These habits were staples of her daily life and often featured in her TikTok content as part of her self-care regimen. Later that morning, April spoke with her mother, Jemia Dickerson. Their conversation was lighthearted and focused on the weekend ahead. The two had planned to see the new Barbie movie together, a treat they had been looking forward to for weeks. However, April mentioned that Donovan's work obligations would prevent her from attending. They decided to postpone their plans and agreed to meet at church the following day instead. It wasn't a serious conversation, Jemia later recalled, just mother and daughter catching up. I didn't know it would be the last time I'd ever hear her voice. For Jemia, the memory of that phone call would later take on profound significance. In hindsight, the ordinary exchange felt like a fleeting glimpse of the daughter she adored, a moment stolen by the tragedy that would soon unfold. Behind the screen, a life of contrasts. April's online persona radiated positivity and resilience, but her life, like her relationship with Donovan, was far more complex than it appeared. While she often presented an image of triumph over adversity, her reality included struggles that many of her followers never saw. She had faced significant challenges, from her isolated homeschooling upbringing to periods of deep depression. Yet, she consistently framed her difficulties as temporary setbacks, hurdles that could be overcome with perseverance and the right mindset. In one particularly vulnerable video, April admitted, "Lately, I've been going through a lot. I can definitely say that I'm in a depressed state, just overwhelmed. I know I'm manifesting more negative experiences on myself with how I've been. I have to get out of this funk." Even in these moments of raw honesty, April's message was one of hope. She believed in the power of resilience and shared her journey in the hopes of inspiring others to face their own challenges with courage. The calm before the storm. The morning of July 28th seemed peaceful on the surface, but it would soon mark the beginning of an unimaginable tragedy. As April went about her day, there was no indication of the turmoil that lay ahead. Her family and followers could not have foreseen the events that would take place later that day, events that would shatter the image of a loving partnership and leave April's life cut tragically short. The devastating phone call, a family's world shattered. The afternoon of July 28, 2023, began like any other for Jemia Dickerson. She went about her daily tasks, unaware that her life was about to change forever. As the sun cast its golden glow across the sky, her phone rang. On the other end was her son-in-law, Donovan Holt, his voice trembling with panic. "Jemia, it's April. She's in the hospital." Denzel found her unconscious in the bathroom, Donovan stammered. Jemia's heart sank. The words felt surreal, like a bad dream she couldn't wake from. Donovan continued, explaining that their 7-year-old son, Denzel, had walked into the bathroom and discovered April unresponsive. She had been in the shower, Donovan claimed, and Denzel had found her with a plastic bag taped over her head. Jemia was in shock. How could this be? Just hours earlier, she had spoken to April, her voice vibrant and full of life as they discussed weekend plans. Now, she was being told that her daughter was fighting for her life. The details were incomprehensible. Jemia rushed to the hospital, her mind racing with fear and unanswered questions. She prayed silently during the drive, pleading for her daughter's survival. The minutes felt like hours, each one stretching into an eternity. When she arrived, she was ushered into a waiting area near the ICU. There, she found Donovan sitting with his head in his hands. His demeanor struck Jemia as odd. He seemed detached, almost as if he were avoiding eye contact. "Donovan, what happened?" Jemia demanded. His explanation was vague and inconsistent. He reiterated that Denzel had found April unresponsive in the bathroom but offered little detail beyond that. He seemed more focused on his own distress than on the specifics of the incident, further heightening Jemia's suspicions. A mother's agonizing vigil. Jemia was eventually allowed to see April, who lay in a hospital bed surrounded by monitors and tubes. The sight was devastating. Her daughter, always so full of energy and life, now appeared fragile and vulnerable. Jimia held April's hand and whispered words of love and encouragement, even as the medical team worked tirelessly to stabilize her condition. The hours that followed were excruciating. Jimia remained by April's side, refusing to leave the room. Each beep of the monitors brought both hope and dread, a reminder of the delicate balance between life and death. The medical staff explained that April's condition was critical, and while they were doing everything possible, the prognosis was uncertain. Jimia clung to the hope that her daughter would wake up, that she would open her eyes and smile, dispelling the nightmare that had enveloped them. A tragic end. Despite the doctor's best efforts, April's condition did not improve. For 3 days, Jimia sat vigil by her daughter's bedside, praying for a miracle that never came. On the evening of July 31st, 2023, the unthinkable happened. April was pronounced dead. The grief was overwhelming. Jimia's world shattered as she realized she would never again hear her daughter's laughter or see her smile. For April's children, Serenity and Denzel, the loss was equally devastating. They had been robbed of their mother, a woman who had been their greatest champion and source of unconditional love. Questions without answers. As Jimia grappled with her loss, she couldn't ignore the troubling questions surrounding April's death. The circumstances described by Donovan raised more concerns than they resolved. Why was April found with a plastic bag taped over her head? The detail was both bizarre and deeply unsettling. What purpose could the bag have served, and who had placed it there? Why had Denzel, a 7-year-old child, been the one to discover her? If Donovan had been present in the home, why hadn't he checked on April himself? These unanswered questions gnawed at Jimia's heart, fueling her suspicion that there was more to the story than what Donovan was letting on. For Jimia, the grief of losing her daughter was compounded by the lack of clarity surrounding her death. The details didn't make sense, and the explanations offered by Donovan felt incomplete at best, misleading at worst. A husband's strange behavior. In the corner of the room sat Donovan Holt, April's husband. Jimia turned to him, desperate for answers. She expected to see the same panic and desperation she felt mirrored in his face. Instead, Donovan's demeanor was eerily calm. He sat slouched in a chair, his head in his hands, rocking slightly back and forth. Donovan, Jimia pressed, her voice sharp with urgency. What happened? Donovan looked up briefly but offered no new details. He repeated what he had told her over the phone, that their 7-year-old son, Denzel, had found April unconscious in the bathroom with a plastic bag taped over her head. Beyond that, he had little to say. What struck Jimia most was his detachment. While medical staff rushed around them, Donovan made no effort to engage with the doctors or advocate for April. When asked about her medical history or decisions about her treatment, he deferred to Jimia, as if the responsibility for his wife's life had shifted entirely to her. Jimia couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong, not just with April's condition, but with Donovan's reaction. Shouldn't he be doing more? Shouldn't he be fighting harder for his wife? A mother's vigil. For 3 agonizing days, Jimia remained at April's bedside. She held her daughter's hand, stroked her hair, and whispered words of encouragement, hoping against hope that April could hear her. The medical staff did everything they could to stabilize April's condition, but her body showed no signs of improvement. Jimia barely left the room, eating and sleeping as little as possible. Each moment was a delicate balance between hope and despair. She prayed fervently, pleading for a miracle, while the reality of the situation loomed larger with every passing hour. The unthinkable. On the evening of July 31st, 2023, Jimia's worst fears came true. The doctors informed her that despite their best efforts, April had succumbed to her injuries. The machines that had sustained her life were turned off, and the room fell silent, safe for Jimia's sobs. The autopsy report, unsettling answers and lingering question. Months later, in November 2023, the medical examiner's autopsy report was released. According to the findings, April had died from suffocation. The report noted no signs of blunt force trauma or struggle on her body, leading the medical examiner to conclude that no foul play was involved. The Metro Nashville Police Department officially ruled April's death a non-homicidal tragedy. For Jimia, the report was anything but conclusive.
I have done 3 hours of research and investigative work myself for over the past year to get justice for my daughter.
While it offered an explanation for April's cause of death, it raised far more questions than it answered. How had April ended up with a plastic bag taped over her head? Why hadn't Donovan provided more detailed information about the events leading up to the incident? Why had Denzel, a child, been the one to discover April in such a state instead of Donovan? These unresolved questions haunted Jemia. The explanations offered by Donovan and the authorities felt insufficient, even dismissive. "I know my daughter," Jemia said. "I know she wouldn't leave her children. And I know there's more to this story." As days turned into weeks following April's death, Jemia faced an uphill battle to draw attention to her daughter's case. While her family reeled from grief, the story failed to capture the interest of local or national media. News outlets, which frequently cover similar tragedies, showed little interest in April's story, leaving Jemia to wonder if her daughter's death was being dismissed due to implicit biases or systemic indifference. Jemia tirelessly contacted local Nashville news channels, pleading with them to cover the suspicious circumstances surrounding April's death. She extended her efforts to national outlets, advocacy organizations, and even prominent celebrities, hoping someone with a larger platform would take notice. Not one news channel in the Nashville area has picked up April Holt's story. Not from day one, Jemia said in a heartfelt video update. "It's been 14 months, and I've reached out to every channel, including celebrities. Not one will even respond or take this on." Despite the silence, Jemia refused to be deterred. She turned to social media, leveraging platforms like Facebook and TikTok to share her daughter's story.
Questioning what happened with my daughter after yesterday's post.
Her posts were impassioned pleas for justice, often accompanied by updates on her progress in uncovering new evidence. Slowly but surely, Jemia began to garner a following of supporters who were equally outraged by the lack of accountability in April's case. A formal complaint and a second investigation. Jemia's persistence eventually led her to file a formal complaint with the Nashville Community Review Board, a body tasked with overseeing police conduct and ensuring transparency. She argued that the original investigation had been grossly mishandled, pointing to key evidence, such as the plastic bag taped over April's head, that had been ignored. The pressure from Jemia's complaint forced the Metro Nashville Police Department to reopen April's case. A second investigation was launched, requiring detectives to review the evidence and reconsider their initial findings. For months later, the police released a 47-page report detailing their reinvestigation. While the case's official classification as a non-homicidal death remained unchanged, the report contained significant new information. Jemia, undeterred by her grief, meticulously reviewed every page. She spent months poring over the details, piecing together what she believed to be the truth about her daughter's final moments. A family in mourning. As Jemia fought for answers, she also took on the role of caregiver for April's children, Serenity and Denzel. The loss of their mother left a void that no amount of comfort could fill. Jemia ensured that both children attended grief counseling, doing her best to provide them with a sense of stability in the midst of their trauma. "Some days are better than others," Jemia said, "but we're taking it one step at a time." The emotional toll was immense. Serenity and Denzel frequently experienced nightmares, their cries waking Jemia and her husband in the middle of the night. Jemia described those moments as some of the hardest, knowing she couldn't erase their pain but determined to help them navigate their grief. In the months following April's death, tensions grew between Jemia and Donovan Holt, who had relocated to Texas. Donovan expressed a desire to have his son, Denzel, live with him. Jemia recalled an emotional moment when Denzel begged to stay with her instead. He was crying and saying, "Grandma, I'll do anything to stay with you. I didn't influence him in any way. I just want him to have a fulfilling childhood, wherever that may be." The custody struggles added another layer of complexity to an already strained relationship between Jemia and Donovan. Revelations in the autopsy report. The autopsy report provided by the medical examiner initially concluded that no trauma was connected to April's death. However, when Jemia reviewed the report herself, she discovered evidence that contradicted this conclusion. Visible bruises on April's neck, thighs, and ankles, indicating possible physical restraint. a gash on her inner thigh, raising questions about whether she had been harmed during a struggle. The most damning detail came from the plastic bag and duct tape used to secure it. Forensic analysis revealed a single set of fingerprints, not April's but Donovan Holt's. The confession and arrest. With the evidence in hand, Jimia confronted Donovan in September 2024. She described the moment as one of the hardest in her life. "I said, you can tell me the truth, or I'm going to meet with the cold case team and have this reopened." During their conversation, Donovan confessed to his involvement in April's death. He admitted to an argument that escalated into violence, leading to her death. Jimia recorded the conversation and immediately turned it over to the police. The Metro Nashville Police Department officially reclassified April's death as a homicide, and on September 20th, 2024, Donovan Holt was arrested. The arrest and confession, a grim truth comes to light. After more than a year of relentless advocacy by Jimia Dickerson, the fight for justice in her daughter April Holt's case took a significant turn in September 2024. Donovan Holt, April's husband, was arrested in San Antonio, Texas, following a chilling confession. Under pressure from detectives, Donovan admitted to his involvement in April's death. He detailed the events of that tragic day, revealing that a heated argument in the bathroom had escalated into violence. In his confession, Donovan stated that he had strangled April in a fit of rage. Realizing the gravity of what he had done, he attempted to stage the scene to obscure the truth. Donovan described dragging April's lifeless body into the shower, placing a plastic bag over her head, and taping it in place. The act was calculated, a cruel attempt to mislead investigators and mask his guilt. A chilling facade. What followed was an unsettling display of composure and deceit. Donovan left April's body in the bathroom and returned to the living room, where their 7-year-old son, Denzel, was waiting. He prepared lunch for Denzel, acting as though nothing had happened. Afterward, Donovan instructed the boy to check on his mother. When Denzel entered the bathroom, he found April unresponsive. The discovery set off the chain of events that would lead to Donovan's eventual confession. Indictment and charges. Donovan Holt was indicted by a grand jury on charges of reckless homicide, evidence tampering, and false reporting. The charges reflected the severity of his actions but stopped short of capturing the full scope of the crime's impact. Jimia, along with her supporters, was outraged by the decision to classify the crime as reckless homicide. To her, the evidence, Donovan's confession, the calculated staging of the scene, and the trauma inflicted on Denzel pointed to premeditation and malice. This wasn't just reckless. Jimia argued in a social media update, it was intentional. There's no reason the charges should be as low as they are. They should include first-degree murder, and child endangerment should also be added. Transport and pending trial. Following his arrest in Texas, Donovan was transported back to Tennessee, where he was held on a $75,000 bond, a sum that many saw as insufficient given the severity of his crimes. His arraignment hearing was scheduled for October 23, 2024. The details of the case, including Donovan's confession and the evidence corroborated by forensic analysis, were clear. However, the decision to pursue charges of reckless homicide rather than first-degree murder left many questioning the justice system's approach to the case. Jimia expressed cautious optimism that a new district attorney, expected to be assigned to the case, would take a stronger stance. She vowed to continue her fight, determined to see the charges upgraded to reflect the full scope of Donovan's actions. Jimia's continuing fight for justice. For Jimia, Donovan's arrest was only the beginning. While she took some solace in knowing that he would face consequences for his actions, she remained steadfast in her mission to seek full justice for April. "This is far from over," Jimia said. "We've come this far, and I won't stop until April gets the justice she deserves. It's not just about her. It's about her children, and it's about every family that's been let down by the system." Subscribe to Code 187 and hit the post notification bell.